Are we addressing the Chief of Staff's Twitter habits? It is not a top priority. The Chief of Staff is out there speaking on his own accord.
Southwest Airlines, at the head of the pilots union and its CEO, dismissed critics who claim vaccination mandates contributed to flight disruptions.
But why do you support such a divisive candidate, especially given the global health crisis we are still facing?
Words like polarizing and divisiveness, they assume a normative baseline.
Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer? I can afford people medicine, mother. This is ridiculous.
All right, hang on. The thing is, we're like going so fast. Like I feel like I'm missing.
Do you think that's a problem? That your news network lies?
Well, I don't.
Dude,
I mean, what did they say?
They lied and said I was taking horse dewormer.
Oh, I'll tell you, man. That has been this Joe Rogan stuff. This Joe Rogan stuff today has been the highlight of the day. Today has sucked.
The highlight of like the month. That's awesome. Yes. It's awesome. I'm so happy he agreed to go on that show.
So am I. It's incredible. Yeah, it blew me away. Today from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. was what's called the worst hour in the history of talk radio, and it was hosted by me. It absolutely sucked. It was terrible. I was awful. I apologize to the entire state of Connecticut for that.
I think
so. I
doubt that.
But later on, when I truly grew happy for a period of time, when I heard little bits of the Rogan thing, I couldn't play it live from Twitter on air because
There's
swears in it, so I had to go clean it up. But once I cleaned it up, I was, oh my goodness! It was like finding the winning ticket. It was unbelievable. What we saw today, we should tell the whole story. I don't know how much we told yesterday. I don't remember.
We've talked about this. I did a whole Substack like a month ago about how they were lying about Joe Rogan taking horse dewormer.
Oh, so we talked about all this here.
Yes.
Okay. So should I? Well, let me just go back for the hell of it, just for a little bit to play. Let me just play at least the Anderson Cooper thing on Rogan having COVID.
More breaking news this evening. Joe Rogan, an extremely popular podcaster, announced on social media today that he has COVID. Rogan has said young, healthy people don't need to get vaccinated. In his statement on social media, Rogan said he has taken several therapeutics to recover.
Turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything.
One of those drugs he mentioned, ivermectin, is something more often used to deworm horses. CDC says there's no evidence it works on COVID. Its increased usage has only led to a substantial increase in overdoses after a push by some on the far right, citing vaccine misinformation. Perspective now from our chief media correspondent and anchor of CNN's Reliable
He goes to Stelter, which they're even more gross. But even with him doing that is so ugly. Purposefully conflating the horse medicine, ivermectin, for the human medicine, ivermectin. They're trying to do it on purpose.
Well, right. We give animals all kinds of the same medicines that we give humans.
We almost ordered some yesterday, as a matter of fact. Lisinopril for pigs I almost got yesterday until they gave me the human one. Although maybe they gave me the pig one, actually, fittingly. But so in Cooper Smirks, there's this whole thing that they do on CNN. It's this really elitist, these idiots taking horse medicine, fish tank cleaner thing, whatever. So they're ugly, awful people. But so they've been doing this, as you said. They've been doing this. They've had this thing in CNN where they've been going after Rogan again and again. And so, did we played some goop yesterday, last night, I think. Didn't we? Did we not?
I don't know what day is what day. No, I think,
okay. So,
we played it. We talked about it after our show. We heard it, I think, after we'd already recorded.
So Sanjay Gupta, the doctor, the in-house doctor of CNN, just wrote a book called World War C Coronavirus. And I've always considered him a lightweight TV star kind of guy. That's his thing. He's a TV star who happens to be whatever.
But he has scrubs on the cover of his book, so he must be a very good doctor.
But you know what he is? He's the quintessential good Q rating from women kind of guy. Comforting, speaks clearly, obviously very educated, is a doctor. So he's got all those things. As far as I'm concerned, he is just another CNN hack playing a role He plays the role of the person who verifies how stupid people who take ivermectin
He's the
are.
doctor character on
Exactly.
CNN.
Right, exactly. As Tubin was the lawyer character. It is, again. So then Gupta is selling his book, and of course Books has his publisher reach out and see if he can get on Rogan, because Rogan's got millions and millions and millions of viewers and listeners, many more than he'd ever get anywhere.
Right, many more than he'd get on CNN, that's for sure. I was trying to figure out, I think the best estimates I can find for the size of Rogan's audience is that each show somewhere in the ballpark of like 10 to 20 million people listen to it. So whereas CNN at any given time has like 750,000 to 1.5 million
on
people
a good
watching
day.
it. Yeah,
Yes.
that's like for prime time.
Right. So Gupta decides to go on with Joe Rogan. Now, Rogan has not forgotten how they keep screwing with him. As a matter of fact, he mentioned it at one point during his own show. He's like, what are these guys doing?
I can't believe they're all lying about me.
Yes, he had another a comedian on to kind of, a friend of his on his own podcast who kind of brought it up in a funny way.
Well. If it isn't old horseworm Rogan. I'm glad you're well, man.
Bro, do I have to sue CNN?
I don't know, do you?
They're making shit up. They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor. It's an American company. They won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for use in human beings.
Yeah.
And CNN is saying I'm taking horse dewormer.
Yeah, what? So
they must know that that's a lie.
Well, there's a lot of people saying it.
Right, but a lot of people can say it.
Okay.
Like the internet says it. Who cares?
Sure,
But CNN is saying it. Like Jim Acosta.
I meant like USA Today, a few other
places,
and they're talking about ivermectin, right?
Yeah.
So what? Because I don't know. I just saw.
So yada yada. Anyway, so you can tell Rogan is a little personally offended because he's not a political type. He's not a political junkie. He's not a guy who's been listening to Rush Limbaugh for 30 years and things like that. He considers CNN kind of still a news agency he thinks cable news network means a cable news network. So he doesn't understand this. So when their guy books a gig with Rogan to get, of course, all the impressions that you get when you get to be Joe Rogan, Sanjay Gupta. Gupta is it probably says it in the pitch sheet right there, medical expert for CNN. There could be no better CNN guest because not only this guy is an on-air personality for the network, garners a paycheck from the network, but is a doctor for the network. This is perfect.
So he actually has the medical chops that he should have known that doctors can prescribe ivermectin to humans.
Right. So Gupta, for some reason, assumed something else was going on. I mean, my estimation, this is on our Substack today. My estimation, Gupta thought that he gets treated like a member of the nobility wherever he goes. Highly educated, the in-house doctor. At a time like this, doctors are so heralded.
Do you think he's ever listened to an episode of Rogan?
I doubt it. He's the kind of guy I would assume who listens to Gupta. So Sanjay goes in there and doesn't realize that Rogan's mind is fully it's Gupta's fault for starting it. He said, "Oh, glad you got over having COVID," and Rogan essentially says, "Oh, thanks for that, but I bet you're the only one at CNN glad I got over it." And Gupta's like, "Oh, what do you mean, Joe? I don't understand what you're talking about." And
we all very much respect you.
Right. And then it was too late.
Horse dewormer's not a flattering thing. I get that.
It's a lie. It's a lie on a news network, and it's a lie that's a lie that they're conscious of. This is not a mistake.
So this is a very tough thing. He's coming right at Gupta now. Gupta is a guy about the same age as Rogan, a couple years younger, who is trying to sell a book to hopefully get rich in the time of COVID. I mean, richer in the time of COVID. And he's doing it with somebody who he hopes and assumes and may know his work and like him.
Right.
And somebody who generally, people say, you would say that Rogan's a kind of mild-mannered guy and has 3-hour conversations. But I don't think he expected this passion. And also, Rogan is all tatted up and, bulging with muscles and looks like a guy who's just gotten finished with a street fight. And I think Gupta's was totally thrown off his axis. And now Rogan's going after Gupta's employer.
Right.
So he's got to either defy his employer or go right back at Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
This is very tough for him. Well, no, it turns out not to be all that tough for him. As you can see, he
immediately folds under pressure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're unfavorably framing it as veterinary medicine.
Well, the FDA put this thing out. You saw that. Did you see that thing that the FDA put out?
What did the FDA put out?
It was a tweet, and it was snarky. I admit it. They said, "You are not a horse."
This is Gupta trying to punt the ball, kick the ball, clear the puck. Right. Talk about something else. Make another target that's not CNN.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. Rogan's...
okay, I admit the FDA got a little snarky.
It was
I
snarky.
apologize for the FDA for being snarky.
Right.
You are not a cow. Stop taking this stuff or something like that.
Why would you say that when you're talking about a drug that's been given out to billions and billions of people, a drug that was responsible for one of the inventors of it making
Winning the
Nobel Prize in 2015?
This is so Weasley of Gupta at this point now, trying to walk alongside of Rogan instead of having to watch Rogan approach him. Oh, yeah, I'm right there with it. Nobel Prize, this and that.
Yeah, the FDA shouldn't have been snarky.
No, yep.
15, yeah.
Yeah, a drug that has been shown to stop viral replication in vitro. You know that, right? Why would they lie? And
so this is incredible because at this point, when Rogan says, you know that, he can't really say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say yes or no, can't do anything. If he says you know that, then he's all in with Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
If he says no, then he's going to catch the ire of Rogan, and he has to engage, and he's not here to engage. He's here to sell his World War C book.
Say that's horse dewormer. I can afford people medicine, mother. This is ridiculous. It's just a
That is Gupta not laughing out of out of joy. That is a, oh my goodness, the walls are closing in laugh.
I don't think anyone is thick.
But don't you think that a lie like that is dangerous on a news network when you know that they know they're lying? You know that they know that I took medicine. Like, here it is. This is ivermectin.
You got
this
it
is
with
right
you.
here. Somebody gave it to me.
Have you ever heard anybody sound so disappointed that somebody has something with them?
Well, no, to me, it's he's trying to scramble to to change the conversation to how you have it with you. But Rogan doesn't care. Somebody gave it to him.
Right, hang on. The thing is, we're like going so fast. Like I feel like I'm missing.
Do you think that's a problem that your news
network
network
is not mercy?
Well, I don't.
Dude,
what did they say?
They lied
what did
and
they
said
say?
I was taking horse dewormer. First of all, it was prescribed to me by a doctor.
Yeah.
Along
they
with
shouldn't have said
a
it was
bunch
horse.
of other medications.
If you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking the veterinary medication, and you're not, obviously. You got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that. Ivermectin can be a very effective medication for parasitic disease, and as you say, it's probably, I think, 250 million people have taken it around.
The weaseling being done here by Gupta is, he can never get away from this. Never.
Right.
He is saying whatever he needs to survive the assassin. You can take my wife. I don't know. Here's this real gold watch. It's whatever you think. I can give you other information of the location of other people who are more important than me. This is pathetic at its core.
On the world,
More,
I get that.
Way more.
So
way more. Billions of people have taken it.
Can I just come back to the one I want to talk about? Two things
No.
on the ledger.
You have before we get to that. Does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
You didn't ask? You didn't think that was yours? You're the medical guy over there.
I didn't ask. I should have asked before coming on your podcast.
But they did it with such glee.
No,
yes,
Joe.
They did. I watched.
And that's it. I have the end of it actually goes, you watched? Yes, I watched. And it goes, you watched.
You saw us. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. So did you read what he wrote, his 30,000 retweet column that he wrote for CNN then about how he went on congratulating himself? All his tweets have like 150 retweets, and then his column about going on Rogan has like, it's probably at 35,000 now retweets. 35.6 thousand retweets on that one column. So this is why he went on Rogan, obviously, even if it was humiliating and an embarrassment, is because he's getting this out of it. But,
maybe Alice, but he is a disgrace now.
He is a disgrace, but he's humiliated himself.
He's humiliated himself. He's broken CNN, and he's actually, considering he's such a quintessential kind of handsome, genteel, educated man of medicine, he's freaking torpedoed the medical profession, at least doctors.
Yeah, but so
dentists.
Listen to what he wrote about it. This is the headline. Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Why Joe Rogan...
Not that the dentists aren't doctors, because they are.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Why Joe Rogan and I sat down and talked for more than 3 hours. Well, first of all, you and Joe Rogan didn't sit down and talk. He let you come on his podcast and interviewed you. But
right, that is great.
Why Joe and I sat down and talked as equals. No. You went on the most popular podcast in the country to get publicity so that you could write this op-ed and get clicks on it. In today's highly segmented media world, most of the people who watch and listen to me every day on CNN have already received and accepted the message about the utility of vaccines, the importance of masks, and how we can work together to put an end to the pandemic. So I realized that if I was serious about trying to communicate public health, I needed to go to a less comfortable place. I needed to go into the lion's den and accept an invitation to sit down with Joe Rogan for more than 3 hours. I don't think I've ever had a conversation that long with anyone. Seriously, think about that. We know. Those of us who listen to Joe Rogan have heard 3-hour shows before. So we're aware of how long they are. We know how long.
But also, like, they're like petite female comedians sit there and don't pat themselves on the back. Bridget Phetasy said,
into the lion's den.
To the lion's den. It's only a lion's den if you are a weasel and get mauled.
Seriously, think about that. We sat in a windowless podcast booth with 2 sets of headphones and microphones and a few feet between us.
Oh my goodness, windowless.
Not a single interruption. No cell phones. No distractions. No bathroom breaks.
He could have had a bathroom break. Had he ever watched the show, people take bathroom breaks all the time.
So he talks about how popular Joe Rogan is and how his conversations go long and deep.
That is pathetic.
He goes, many friends cautioned me against accepting Joe's invitation. There's little room for reasonable conversations anymore, one person told me. He's a brawler and doesn't play fair, another warned.
What? What show are they talking about?
They've never, none of the
only
people who
he's ever had a problem
Rogan.
with that I've seen are people who, to his face, are trying to be deceptive to him, or if he observes that they are.
Yeah, no, the people that criticize Joe Rogan, I don't think have ever listened to 10 minutes of a single show. In fact, when I told Joe early in the podcast I didn't agree with his apparent views on vaccines against COVID, ivermectin, and many things in between, part of me thought the MMA former Taekwondo champion might hurtle himself across the table and throttle my neck. But instead he smiled and off we went.
Yeah, that's what happened.
I mean, and he goes on, he says he's been listening to his podcast for a while now.
He has not been listening to his podcast.
So he wanted to know, was Joe simply a sower of doubt, a creator of chaos, or was there something more? Was he asking questions that begged to be asked, fueled by necessary suspicion and skepticism? It wasn't what Joe Rogan thinks that most interested me. It was how he thinks. That is what I really wanted to understand. Who was interviewing who here?
Yeah, one person was on the mat bleeding from the ears, and one person was standing over him.
He wrote this after the interview.
I know. He's also so is that it essentially?
Yeah, I mean on and on.
So he also afterwards went in CNN, and suddenly he's tough again when he's got Don Lemon protecting him.
So very important. I know it's in large part a tongue-in-cheek interview, because it's Joe Rogan and there's lots of you're jockeying.
Another guy doesn't watch him
back and forth, but he did say something about ivermectin that I think wasn't actually correct about CNN and lying. Okay, ivermectin is a drug that is commonly used as a horse dewormer. So it is not a lie to say that the drug is used as a horse dewormer. I think that's important, and it is not approved for COVID. Correct?
That's right. That's correct. It is not approved for.
So Gupta now knows Lemon is lying.
Right.
They said Rogan was taking the horse dewormer.
Right.
That's what they said.
But they know, too, that none of their audience is going to go watch Rogan and find out what his show's actually like. So they might as well just completely lie about what happened. And just, I mean, like, they're still talking about it. He was on with John Berman talking about it, too. Like,
of course.
They're like, the headline, they use in the Chiron, the Lion's Den thing again in the Chiron with Berman. Gupta was in the Lion's Den. We hear from him next. Like, what? I mean, like, what do they think Joe Rogan is? And like,
so this is interesting. The Chiron right now for this that we're listening to with Lemon says Joe Rogan to Dr. Sanjay Gupta. I'm not recommending people get COVID. A lot of vulnerable people should get vaccinated. If that's not conciliatory, I truly believe that they are afraid of getting sued.
Yeah.
By him.
Well, yeah, because he has deep enough pockets where he's a person who could make their life a pain in the butt. Like, even if it doesn't end up succeeding on the merits, he can just bother them.
Absolutely.
For COVID. And you're right. I mean, the FDA even put out a statement saying, basically reminding people, it was a strange sort of message from the FDA, but that said, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop taking this stuff.
Oh, good. The line works on Don Lemon.
Right. The line, now he's touting the line.
Yeah, even though Rogan shut him down.
Well, and he was just dissing the line on Rogan. So it was a weird, terrible line they put up. I mean, that was unnecessary.
Ivermectin. Now, I think what Joe's point is...
It has been approved for humans, but not necessarily for COVID, right? Yeah.
That's correct. It's been used for a parasitic disease, for something it's called river blindness, and it's been very effective for that. But, just because it works...
Yeah,
but CNN
and you know what
suggesting
else?
that people are taking the horse ivermectin and getting sick from it.
Right, yeah. And not only that, the fact that they're saying, like, well, it's not approved for COVID. Well, like, a lot of drugs aren't approved for a lot of things because that's not how it works. And people just take them for stuff because you're allowed to use off-label drugs if they're approved by the FDA for other uses. All these trans drugs that we're feeding kids, they're not approved for that purpose. Those are all off-label prescriptions. The FDA hasn't approved any of that. That's not a thing. The puberty blockers are prescribed for precocious puberty, for kids who... that's what they're approved for. They're not approved for like stopping puberty in normal kids that are developing normally. The whole thing is like people use off-label drugs all the time. Are they complaining about the parents that are going to doctors' offices and asking them to vaccinate their kids with COVID vaccines off-label? Because that's happening all over the place. Are they going, well, parents are asking for unapproved COVID vaccines for their children? Like, well, yeah, things aren't approved for every single purpose, and you can go to your doctor and ask for them off-label, and sometimes your doctor will give them to you, and that's okay. That's allowed. It's a free country. And you know what else? You're even allowed to take stuff if it doesn't work.
Of course.
Like, there's not that many studies on,
half the stuff sold in pharmacies are stuff that don't work, especially in the little natural section there.
For one thing, doesn't mean it works for something else. And, there's still a few ongoing clinical trials around ivermectin, but for the most part, if you look at the data, there's no evidence that it really works here. When Joe got sick, he took ivermectin. He also took monoclonal antibodies.
Another thing CNN had a problem with back then.
Oh, yeah.
An infusion of these antibodies. So he took both those things. It's very likely it was the monoclonal antibodies that made him feel better so quickly.
Sanjay, always a pleasure. I hope this was an easier experience than Joe Rogan. You held your own.
I love that all the CNN people are like, oh my God,
I don't think I've ever spoken to another human for 3 hours before just like that. It was really something.
Sanjay, thank you. Best of luck with the book as well. World War C.
Thank you.
Other people talk for hours all the time. What do you mean I've never talked for 3 whole hours? Like, what are you guys talking about? It's so just like, I mean, I don't know what they think of Rogan, but they think it's like so incredible that one of them went on Rogan into the Lion's Den 3 whole hours. Can you believe it?
So, all right. So that is wonderful. It is wonderful to see that it happened. That is, It's also an incredibly good sign because I think a lot of people, especially conservatives, have been hoping that Rogan grabs a weapon and comes, behind the wall as you're picking off the redcoats, know, and he's been nudged now into a position where he has fired shots now at the left.
Right, and so what's interesting is Joe Rogan is one of these people that like the left has tried a few times to try and get canceled because he had some problems with like the trans women in MMA fighting things. And so like even when he endorsed Bernie Sanders, a bunch of people tried to get Bernie Sanders to like reject his endorsement during the last presidential campaign. So they've tried, but he's just too big for them. They can't cancel him. It's like trying to cancel Dave Chappelle or J.K. Rowling. Like you just can't do it. They're too big. But it's funny because, like, when you see the way Sanjay Gupta talks about it and when you see, like, the comments on the Twitter, just like we talked about with, like, the Anna Kasparian Daily Caller debate with Ben Shapiro, there's a bunch of people in the comments being like, you can't platform and legitimize these people. And, like... her response that, like, I'm not legitimizing them. They gave me a much bigger platform than I ever had, right? And, like, people did that with Sanjay Gupta, too. Like, you shouldn't legitimize him and his questions and his blah, blah, blah. And, like, the way people talk about Tucker Carlson, too. But Joe Rogan's not afraid to have people on who disagree with him, clearly, and just have an honest conversation with them, ask them really his questions and see what their answers are. Joe Rogan would probably have Fauci on, but Fauci probably couldn't make it through the interview with him.
No. Because Rogan would have...
He would get sensitive and storm out of the room, probably.
And Rogan would also just say, so why did you say that's okay and not say it's okay? But that's lying. And without... Right. And like I said, Rogan doesn't have a... He doesn't have a team. CNN has a team. All these guys are activists for a certain team. Rogan doesn't have a team. He's just a curious guy. And that's tough for them, I think, to try to navigate that. They don't understand. And why would you not have a team?
Right, and if he is not on their team, clearly, they're angry about it. You know, they don't like people who don't like fall into line and just say what we tell you to say. You know, but it is funny how people like do they just not realize how big like the Rogans of the world are?
They don't realize.
They just don't know. They just haven't noticed that there's like a whole world of people out there who listen.
NPR and maybe you download it and subscribe to Pod Save America just so people would know you're that kind of person.
The Daily from the New York Times.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. So now the second thing that made my day today was Emily Chang of Bloomberg TV.
Okay.
Who's the finance interviewer. She's only in her 20s. She's very young. But she's very, I guess she's an up-and-comer. People like her. And she's Bloomberg TV. It's a nonpartisan show. It's supposed to be down-the-middle show. It's a finance-based show, world economic, things like that. And this other guy, what is his name again? I'll remember. It is David Sachs. And David Sachs, he invests in tech stuff, I think. Let me look and see what the official
I don't think I saw this before.
Did you not? Good. It's great. David Sachs. He's an entrepreneur, investor in internet technology firms. He's really, really rich. He's only less than a year older than me, which makes me want to go hang myself. But this guy, so he's a very popular. Sachs was the founding COO and product leader of PayPal and founder, CEO of Yammer.
Okay.
So he's a tech guy. But because, DeSantis is the new Trump. So she decides to take a step away from talking tech with him, and she decides to assuage her anger that he would have any affiliation at all with Ron DeSantis. And this is how it went. And David O. Sachs now is my new second favorite American.
I do want to ask you about the fundraiser you're hosting for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who obviously is a very divisive figure, has made some choices that are questionable when it comes to public health. I know that you don't necessarily agree with all of them, but why do you support such a divisive candidate, especially given the global health crisis we are still facing?
Why is he inherently more divisive than, say, Gavin Newsom or someone on the other side of the spectrum? See, what I would argue is that words like polarizing and divisiveness, they assume a normative baseline in which everybody agrees. Everyone in the tech industry agrees because they all come from a certain information bubble. And anyone who deviates from that orthodoxy is perceived as divisive. I would argue that that the country there's a multiplicity of views, and you're not divisive just because you don't agree with the orthodoxy of Silicon Valley.
So, but why?
Okay, she's not pleased. That did not. No, she did not get her.
That's not the answer she was looking for.
No, she is not pleased.
DeSantis over many of the other candidates who you could host fundraisers for. I mean, I know you're bullish on Florida, but DeSantis and Mayor Suarez, who was actually on.
He says, I like him. I like him. Also, she said, what? Nobody like him.
You can't just like him.
Yeah, none of my friends like him. You don't understand. None of my friends like him.
But what answer is she expecting?
We watch Sanjay Gupta, and he doesn't like him.
But what answer is she expecting? Is she expecting him to go like, well, I know everybody hates him, and I don't know what I was thinking. I'm sorry. Like,
I think that she, she thinks, because she's a zillennial, a zoomer, and she's a huge progressive, I think that she thinks that she's going to change his mind here on the spot, because she just got out of college, and she knows a lot. He has only been doing stuff for 35 years or whatever it is. He doesn't know anything. Mm-hmm. She's been hanging in enlightened groups, so she knows. Right. What would he know? He's some old guy.
The show earlier this hour are on different ends of the spectrum.
I've donated to Suarez too, but I like both of them.
So Suarez is a guy who's a big Democrat and the mayor of whatever, and he says I donated to him too because he likes where he is on tech. So he has. Now that is totally not allowed. No, you can't like and under people for different reasons. You're in a tribe. We're the good guys, or you're the bad guys.
I like Suarez because he's been extremely welcoming towards the tech ecosystem in Miami. I think that's a smart strategy. I don't get why the politicians in San Francisco don't do that. I mean, they're killing the golden goose. In terms of why I like DeSantis, he was the first governor to stop these insane lockdowns. And, he found the right policy on lockdowns, which was to stop them. And he did it despite an extremely hostile media. So I respect that. When somebody takes the right position on an issue, despite the hostility of the media, that's something I can really respect. That's why I support it.
Pretty damn good answer. Mm-hmm. So, and it's funny. So a lot of the people who now hate David Sachs, have just met him for the first time, but now hate him, say, yeah, what are these, define crazy lockdowns. What crazy lockdowns is he talking about?
The ones that saved all the lives, Tom.
Right. Or, no, if they don't know what crazy lockdowns, then why do they all hate DeSantis for not doing them? You know?
But he made masks illegal, I think.
That's right. He made masks illegal so that more and more kids die. And all the kids in Florida are dead now. So anyway, that makes me very happy. That was very good. Mm-hmm. Quick personal story before we move on.
Okay.
I have something to tell you and the rest of you guys listening right now, because, and I want you to know this, and you've called me a flat earther before, Alice. Mm-hmm. Let me put something forward for you that I know to be fact, and I discovered it as I was laying in Sally's bed.
Okay.
Just because it's a comfortable little bed. Mm-hmm. Sally was somewhere else downstairs. And her room is the best room in the house. So I'm laying in her bed, which is very hard to get up from, by the way. I want credit. Mm-hmm. And because Pepper, the dog, the foxhound, has to be with me every second of the day. Can't not be with me everywhere I go.
Who wouldn't want to be with you?
Yeah. Pepper, I never am in Sally's room. So Pepper couldn't find me. And I could hear her worrying and looking through rooms and doors and walking over here, walking over there, walking there. She went downstairs at one point, and I can hear her looking around, poking around, can't find me. At one point, she's at the top of the stairs, which is 20 or 18 feet away from Sally's room, and she can't find me.
Aww, so,
Pepper.
No, Alice, the point is this. Dogs don't smell better than anybody else. The dog's sense of smell, dogs have no good sense of smell. That is totally a lie. It's a lie. I'm a lump in that bed, exuding, breaths and whatever else. And she couldn't find me. And she just had to look in every room. What is that? Okay, so which brings us to, what do you want to get? I mean, there's nothing for the, should we get to the inflation stuff a little bit with Psaki and Ron Klain?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that. Ron Klain had tweeted this.
Yeah, he retweeted somebody who said that inflation is just a rich people's problem.
Right.
That it's good for poorer people because they get higher wages.
By the way, a lot of this inflation and energy prices is directly due to Biden climate policy.
Yeah.
It is to think that that fuel to heat houses is going to go up 50% is actually holy bleep incredible news. But that's fine. So Clean tweets that says, everybody just suck it up. Don't worry. It's a rich person's problem. You little people won't notice. Psaki has asked about it today.
It's not the first time that Ron Klain's Twitter has drawn some sharp criticism. Is that something that the White House is addressing at all, given this pushback, this criticism?
Are we addressing the Chief of Staff's Twitter habits? Yes. It is not a top priority. I would tell you at this point in time, the Chief of Staff is out there speaking on his own accord to members of Congress, to the media, frequently, as any Chief of Staff does.
In his personal capacity, I guess that's what she's saying.
And I think it's important also for anyone here to be able to tout points that they find interesting. And that's the purpose of public speech.
So there we go. Once again, no, we don't know what you mean. Once again, this White House says, yeah, no, it's fine. That's normal tweeting. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally
not that tweeting is an issue the right could really, or Trump people could really take issue with, but this wasn't a Trump person. This was a member of the press, a person on the left who probably did take issue with Trump's tweets. And Psaki has no time. It's an interesting strategy to simply walk past any issue that you're asked about that you don't care to answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she does. Oh, we don't talk about the Chief of Staff's tweets. That's ridiculous. Like,
or any of these issues. There's no flare-up. There's no this. There's no inflation. There's no... If there is inflation, it's transitory. It's transitory. Well, we know that everything is transitory. Is it not?
Yeah, life is short.
It's just these...
When you're dead, the inflation won't affect you anymore. But, obviously, everything...
And it's also not only is it projection with these people, but it's always opposite day. It's always opposite day. So no. This is absolutely something that's conciliatory from us. That's what this is. This is something that, as a matter of fact, will bring us together.
Let's be clear. Vaccination requirements should not be another issue that divides us.
Let's be clear. There you go. Set the table for you. It's such a senator thing to say. This shouldn't be something that divides us. Well, why shouldn't it be something that divides us? It is absolutely something that should be absolutely be dividing us.
Vaccine mandates are yet another thing that you should just agree with me on and not have a different opinion. Because if you have a different opinion, then it's dividing us.
The fact that you've had COVID, but we're making your employer force you to get a shot or else you lose your livelihood, that shouldn't be something that divides us. Holy hell!
I know, but it's the same as like the DeSantis question. Like, DeSantis is so divisive. You know, why are the vaccine mandates dividing us? But that's your choice. You can either agree with me or we're being divided by forces beyond both of our control. I'm making you do something, and if you don't like it, you're being divisive.
Well, exactly. And it really is. It's not even, it is a opposite day projection, and it's the same.
And it's like weird
mindset.
Gaslighting.
Yes, it is. It's the same mindset as why is Brett Kavanaugh acting so unhinged right now? It's unbecoming of a future Supreme Court justice. I mean, all we did was in front of his daughter say that he controlled a rape gang. I mean, and he's gotten really upset about it. That's unbecoming. It's incredible. But I mean, whatever. This is small brain thinking.
That's why we continue to battle the misinformation that's out there. And companies and communities are stepping up as well to combat the misinformation. Southwest Airlines, at the head of the pilots union and its CEO, dismissed critics who claim vaccination mandates contributed to flight disruptions.
Right after he addressed misinformation, serves up a big dish of misinformation.
Well, he said that it had nothing to do with vaccine mandates, so it can't possibly have anything to do with
now that is
vaccine
projection.
mandates.
There's all this misinformation on the other side. There's somebody was strapped by the Border Patrol. Misinformation on the other side, strapping psychos.
Board members, religious leaders, and doctors across the country are fighting misinformation and educating people about the importance of vaccines. All of these efforts are going to help us continue moving the dial to eliminate this disease.
I can't believe he's even still saying that out loud, eliminate this disease, when virtually every expert now agrees that we're shooting for a state of it being endemic in the population.
Yeah, no, including...
like the flu, that we could have 50,000 deaths from this a year going forward like we do from the flu, and that's just like what we could be looking at.
Yes, no, I was just watching someone, I don't even know who it was. It could have even been Gottlieb saying that, this is never completely going away. This is something that we're going to have to deal with, a regiment full of stuff every year.
I mean, I think it was, is it an Australian news source or maybe a British one that was saying, like, the next step for your immunity after you get vaccinated is to get COVID, and then your immunity will be really boosted. And I guess they're trying to avoid the Singapore situation where everyone's like freaking out and panicked that they're testing positive for COVID, even though the country's like 93% vaccinated and nobody's showing any symptoms. They're like all asymptomatic cases. But whatever, like, it's still such a weird message to read from like where they've been, where they've been like so freaked out about this. So, I mean, it's the fact that the president of the United States is still saying this aloud, like, we are going to work together to eliminate this disease. Like, it's people living in a non-reality, and like, talk about not following the science. Like, we're still making all the school kids wear masks. Like, that's another thing Joe Rogan talked to Sanjay Gupta about, was like the fact that unvaccinated kids are at less risk from COVID than vaccinated adults are. You're vaccinated. You're still at more risk from COVID than any of our kids is. Because, like, you've reduced your risk, but they were so low risk to start with that they're at less risk than the vaccinated adults ever were.
Don't you think that even with a breakthrough infection, untreated, you're probably more vulnerable than the average child who is not vaccinated, who gets COVID? Like, people have died who are double vaccinated. In fact, there was a guy who just won an Emmy who's
I saw that.
Yeah, the odds of that happening to a healthy child are very, very low.
Very low.
But that guy is probably your age.
He would never say it like that on CNN, Gupta.
Mm-hmm.
How old are you?
I'm 51.
Yeah, he's about your age. Theoretically, you would be more vulnerable than a young child would be. You vaccinated would be more vulnerable of a breakthrough infection than a young child would be, statistically speaking, right? But you're not worried about catching it.
They're both rare.
But you're not worried about catching it.
They're both rare.
You're not worried about catching it because you've been vaccinated and you think it imparts a certain amount of protection.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying to you is I think that not worry is the same feeling that a lot of people have about their children. They're not worried about their healthy children catching it for the same reason you're not worried about catching it being vaccinated. That if treated correctly, they think that the child probably has a better chance even than you do because you're 51 years old.
I think...
Does that...
I mean, they're both...
That seems reasonable, right?
Well, I think it's... I know...
Man, Sandra, get a spine.
I mean, the thing is what Joe Rogan's saying is not a controversial point.
No.
This isn't some weird right-wing conspiracy theory. The New York Times did an article that said this and had this in it as a graph showing the risk for vaccinated and unvaccinated for each age group, and showing you specifically that, like, basically vaccinated people by the time you're 40 you're still at more risk than an unvaccinated kid. So this is like a scientifically shown point in mainstream accepted papers. It's just not reflected in our policies because we're still in pretend land with Biden and the teachers unions and Randy Weingarten, and they're still playing this thing up to try and get like money through the government and all kinds of concessions and stuff, and to try and get kids vaccinated because they know that if they can hold this masking thing over kids' heads in school, that they'll be able to get more kids vaccinated than otherwise, So that's really like what that's about. But the science is indisputable. This is something that's accepted by everybody on the political spectrum. This isn't some people disagree about whether or not ivermectin works. Like, people don't disagree about this. Unvaccinated children are at less risk than you and I. Why they're all walking around the school with masks on is like there's no possible explanation for it.
Right.
None.
And yes, and this persuasion does work for some for tribal reasons. So Huxley's mother will have little Huxley vaccinated 7 or 8 times and have him masked up, whatever. Yeah. And that's really, these are people choosing not to look at the facts, and just simply now it's about just showing fealty to this.
Yeah, but it's so messed up. And like the way that we're letting the schools like control our kids and screw with them is, it's messing them up. So I sometimes read Slate advice columns. It's my guilty pleasure. I like to believe that the people who write into Slate with parenting questions are made up. But this one, so hopefully this is made up, but maybe it's not. I don't know. But anyway, this was really printed in Slate as an advice column that somebody wrote in. My son Jack, 14, has been maintaining a spreadsheet that tracks all of his classmates' problematic actions. Jack has always had difficulty fitting in, but he is a compassionate and intelligent boy. We do not allow our children to have their own computers to prevent the risk of them being radicalized by alt-right websites.
Absolutely.
So our kids share a laptop that we monitor and control access to.
In other words, they decide what Jack learns, what belief system he learns.
We found an Excel spreadsheet in Jack's folder that listed the names of all his classmates, as well as dates and descriptions of their problematic behavior. Some of the descriptions I saw included, has a mom who is a cop, no pronouns in Insta bio.
Is this like the Karen Youth training program?
I guess so. Laughed at a fat joke, lists a problematic show as one of their favorites, mimicked a foreign accent. This has to be fake, but
it definitely is.
Slate treated it as it real, so I'm going to keep reading it. Mimicked a foreign accent and used cis-normative language. While I'm pleased to see Jack taking an interest in his peers, I get a weird feeling about his spreadsheet.
Yeah,
as much as
his kill sheet is causing us to have red flags.
As much as I don't condone the behaviors mentioned, it seems a bit creepy for him to be monitoring his classmates.
How old is he?
14.
Mm-hmm. You know what's also unnerving is that he's using Microsoft Excel.
I also wonder what he is trying to do with the document. Another concern is that we are white, and some of the kids on the list are black.
He also bought a rifle.
Given the long history of white people policing black existence, I question whether Jack is the right person to be taking on this task, and whether it would be more appropriate coming from a BIPOC person.
Yes.
We have asked Jack about the spreadsheet, and he denies involvement, but we know that it couldn't be anyone else. Am I right to be concerned about Jack's list? I don't know that it is the best way for him to engage with his peers and promote social justice. On the one hand, I'm proud of how committed he is to this cause, and I don't want to stop him from bearing witness to injustices within his own community.
Absolutely. There you go. You don't have to read the response. I get it. So, in other words, this is Jack David Chapman, essentially, who's a little psycho who's going to shoot up the school.
But the mom's proud, so it's
absolutely. Cool. This is what they want. Jack is doing exactly what she told them Jack to do, and there you go.
I hope it's fake. But anyway, you can write into us with advice letters, by the way.
Correct.
We'll give you advice, too.
Correct. Please do.
Please
I've got a whole half century almost full of knowledge. NOLEG. Let's go.
So our email address for that is burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter @burnbarrelpod, facebook.com/burnbarrelpodcast, burnbarrelpodcast.com. We have a YouTube channel where you can watch video versions, also a Rumble channel. We're on Gab, we're on Parler, Burn Barrel Pod on there.